of Credible Digital Agency. And full disclosure, I worked for him, but he is incredibly intelligent, and I'm excited to hear his perspective on this particular topic. Mike, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thanks for that intro, Britta. Well, as you mentioned, Proofpoint Marketing, that's my thing. Gabby and I run that company. Um, I think maybe to kick us off on the topic, if you will, my path to where I am is, I wouldn't call it completely non-traditional, but slightly. There's definitely a few twists and turns along the way. My original thought was I was going to be a creative graphic designer, creative director. That's what I was passionate about. In high school, I loved art and the illustration and all this kind of stuff. And I took art lessons, all that jazz. Went to graphic design for college. Interestingly, when I went to school, my parents offered to pay, but they're like, "Well, we're not going to pay for you to draw pictures all day. So you got to do something else." So they kind of forced my hand to double major in graphic design and in marketing. And that I sort of chose like what I thought was going to be sort of the most creative outside of what I thought was the only creative field around, and the easiest. So it was never in my plans to be a marketer when I went to school, and here we are. So I don't know if you want me to go deeper than that, but I thought that might be an interesting way to start.
Yeah, well, you and I have connected on this mutual disdain for the follow your passion myth. And for me, the follow your passion myth disdain comes from a place of, how the heck do you even know what your passion is before you get there, right? And for me, often passion, comes quickly, fades fast. So what does that mean in terms of follow your passion in a career? And I know for you, it's a different sort of approach to that standpoint. So tell me a little bit about why you don't agree with that phrase.
I don't agree with it for a lot of reasons, but one of them, which you mentioned, is kind of it's a chicken and the egg thing, right? Where it's, do you become passionate about things you're good at, or do you become good at the things you're passionate about?
Mm.
I don't know if there's ever been any formal studies done on this. I'm sure somebody's done them. If they haven't, I hope they do at some point. But I believe it's the prior. It is you get passionate about the things that you're good at, right?
Yeah.
So you have to enjoy it to be like, if you, I don't know that anybody can become good at something they just really, really disdain.
Mm.
But if you get some level of enjoyment from it for one reason or another, and you become good at it because of that, then the passion can happen.
Oh, yeah.
So that's one of the reasons why I dislike that.
Say more about that. Say more about, like, if you get good at it, then the passion can
Well,
happen. Like, how has that happened for you?
I
Yeah.
mean, my story is exactly that, right? I guess I had no desire to be a business person for that matter. I thought business people were all like, I mean, I knew sort of, sort of like the suits, right? Like, oh, these are all the suits. Like, I don't want to deal with them. I mean, I went to the University of Minnesota, and it was like the graphic design school was on the St. Paul campus. The the business school was on on the Minneapolis campus, and it was just totally very different environment. And I was like, oh, these people are stiff and boring, and this is fun. These are my people over here, right? Which to a certain extent was definitely true back then,
Right.
and I never had any thought that I was going to go into business and do marketing and all that. But I did a number of design internships out of school, and even in school, I started noticing, like, I'm decent, I'm pretty good, but there's these people over here that are just really good, like
Mm.
really, really good. Now, those are the people right now that have creative director roles and are doing you know directors and VP of product and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I just realized, you know what? I don't think I'm ever going to be that. I
Mm.
enjoy this. This is fun, but I just don't have that innate skill. And yeah, I could bang my head against the wall and try to get fractionally better and better and better and claw my way through this and whatnot. But what I am really good at is just other creative concepts. And that happens to be, and marketing seems kind of interesting. And then I had some internships that were more marketing focused. One of them was totally by accident. And that's when I got into digital and search and all this stuff. I'm like, oh, this is kind of fun and interesting. And I'm actually good at it and all this kind of stuff. So it just sort of, it went that way.
Hmm. Hmm. That's so, what I love about what you're saying is you didn't beat your head against the wall for not being XYZ. You kind of had this self-awareness to be honest with yourself. Talk a little bit more about that. How did you develop that self-awareness, or what did that look like for you?
I honestly don't know is the honest answer. I
Yeah,
don't, it's not like, I don't
that's
know that I
real.
was raised that way.
Yeah,
I was raised on, uh, like typical Eastern European Jewish immigrants. Like
yeah,
if any of everyone's listening, I'm sure they know, right? It's education's important and hard work and work ethic and all that stuff. That's how I was raised. So
yeah.
I don't know that it wasn't that.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. I don't know that I have a good answer to sort of how I developed it. I just sort of did, I guess.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I think it really was just over time that realization of, you know what, I there's just people that are way better at this than me.
Was it humbling to make that shift in perspective, or was it just like
Uh,
a reality? Like this is just how it goes, and
At first, I think I'm trying to think back. At first, it actually kind of stung a little bit. I'm like, I really want to do this. So I think there was definitely a period of time where I think I tried to bang my head against the wall a little bit.
yeah.
I'm like, no, I'm gonna do this. Like, like this is, I signed up for this. I really do want that. And then you start just realizing, no, this is stupid. I don't want it.
Mm,
Like there's a lot, and there was a number of things. First, there was um, the realization that I just wasn't as good as these other people. And then I
yeah,
continued. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go get some internships. I'm going to get better. I'm going to work at this. Um, the the next part was, I think, realizing like as I was getting into the professional environment, I just didn't like certain things about it. Like it was too subjective.
mm,
And I realized at that point, interestingly, like high school, college, I was okay at math and science, but I didn't love it.
yeah,
But in college I took statistics and I really like statistics. And I realized like there's just something about data and numbers that is obviously I mean, we all know like data and numbers can tell you whatever story you want them to tell you, right?
yeah, yeah.
You can make them subjective, but sort of in my mind back then it was, well, no, the numbers are the numbers. And like this is versus here, you got sort of decision by committee and the owner. I mean, I did an internship at a creative agency, and like I remember even as an intern uh, working on a project, and like one of the creative director going, yeah, this is really good. Let's go this way. We're going to go with this idea, and then the CEO comes in, no, this is all crap. We're going to go this way. I'm like, what?
Yeah,
So all like a number of those experiences over time, I think just got me to realize like this isn't for me.
yeah,
And it's like,
mm,
why force it? Like, yeah, sure, I spent all these years doing that, but
yeah.
and I still enjoy like creative. Like every once in a while, I'll get into Photoshop and Illustrator and realize I haven't used it in about 2 years and have to relearn everything. But you know, uh, it's fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I love that perspective. If you're just tuning in now, you're listening to the Newly podcast. I'm here with Mike Grinberg. We're busting the myth of the follow your passion. And Mike, I love what you just talked about. How I relate to that is I was, an artist for my 20s. We've talked about this before, so which means I was a bartender and a server. And I really pushed hard to try to make a living at it. And it was like the more I tried to make a living at it, the more I hated it. And it got to a point where I was just like, here's this thing that I love that is my passion, making art. And all of a sudden it's become this thing that I hate. What do I do now? And yeah, so I loved how you talked about, you got to this place where you were experiencing different things with graphic design, and there's a part of you that's hesitating, like, wait a minute, I don't know if this is what I want. And So how do we take this same thing into like our real lives? So like for you, what's a different way that this manifests? Like that it's sort of proven unhelpful, this follow your passion myth.
Um, well, I'll kind of give another example of a similar thing that you talked about. Not one that I personally experienced, maybe tangentially. I can relate to it, but so for anybody that knows me knows I'm pretty big into martial arts. I competed amateur for a while and whatnot, not anymore, but
Eat me up, Mike.
I trained with some really high level people that were, at the gym I went to and had some, UFC champs and all that kind of stuff. So, and I saw firsthand there were people that just really loved it no matter what, that were pros, but there were people that I saw the progression where they went from amateur to pro and they just never really made it as high as they thought they could go,
Mm,
for a variety of reasons. And that doesn't really matter in this case, I don't think, and their entire demeanor just changed.
mm,
Like they went from being happy at the gym to being angry at the gym. They went from, you know, again, being kind of more friendly and helpful with others to just completely trying to beat the crap out of everybody every time they were there. And it was
wow.
almost like a night and day shift. And I firmly believe it's because, it's sort of, you have this thing like, I'm going to do this. I love this. This is great. And now it switches to, well, I'm going to do this and I'm going to get paid for it. And this becomes my main way to make money. And it just completely shifts the narrative in your own mind.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and like I was decent. I was a decent amateur athlete, but I was, again, same thing. Like I at one point even thought like, maybe I should go do some pro stuff. And I'm like, nope, not gonna do it. I learned my lesson and just not gonna try. And again, I wasn't that good. Like I was
Yeah.
good, but I wasn't that good.
Yeah.
And it was, yeah, could I go pro? Yeah, I could. I mean, like anybody can try it. That's not the problem, but
Yeah.
it's making it to a high enough level and all this kind of stuff. So that's another example. I've now forgot what your original question was.
No, no, that's okay. I was just asking you, how do we take this into our real life? But I think there's another point that I've heard you make before, which I want to emphasize is, this idea that like if you do your passion, you won't feel like you're working or whatever. If you do what you love, you're never gonna work a day in your life. Like, what are your thoughts on that myth? In my opinion,
I think it can be true for like 1% of people.
yeah,
It's not like, I think the reason it's a myth is not because it's never true. I think the person that probably said it first really loved what they do and they felt like they never worked a day in their lives and they said it. Like, again, I don't even know who to credit for that. I don't know if
yeah,
that's been attributed to anybody in particular.
yeah,
But so can that happen? Sure. Like, and I probably, and I think I know people that do that, but I also think that it only covers, half the picture, which is the people that go that way and sort of do what they love and love what they do and they do it day in and day out. It takes a ton of sacrifice to get to that level
yeah,
because it's usually what we're talking about is people that pick the one thing and they just become the top half of 1% or whatever.
yeah, yeah,
And that just, I mean, the example I always go to is athletes, right? Like, in you don't have to go far, like every single sort of best of the best athlete that you've ever heard an interview from, at some point they talk about the sacrifices that it took. But most people just gloss over that and they go, well, they have the nice cars and the millions of dollars and the sponsorships and all this stuff.
yeah,
And I think the same thing you can argue is like, every single top, entrepreneur and CEO at some point in those interviews that you've listened about their lives, they'll talk about all the sacrifice they took and how it almost killed their family and maybe did completely, like
yeah,
divorce and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I'm not saying that happens every single time by any means,
right.
but I think that part gets completely glossed over with that idea, like, oh, follow your passion. Cool. Let's do that. And then it just
Yeah.
doesn't work out.
Yeah. Yeah, I relate to that in that, like, there's always a cost, right? If you're not doing one thing, you're doing like, you always have to, if you're not doing this, you're doing that, and there's always sort of a shift, And I think, um, I personally believe, I don't know if this is actually true, but I personally believe if you love your job or like your job a lot, 70% of the time, then you're doing pretty damn good. Like, and I feel like my generation really has been led astray in that they think like, oh, if I don't like my job 100% of the time, then I'm in the wrong job, or it's a toxic work environment or something. What do you think about that?
I mean, I don't like my job probably 10 to 20% of the time, from, here and there. And I own the
Yeah,
damn place. So, like, there's plenty of stuff I do on a day-to-day basis. I'm like, no, this kind of sucks. I don't really want to do this, but I have to.
yeah.
I hate doing the dishes, but I still do them. You know, like,
Right, right.
there's just, I don't know, like, and that part definitely gets to the way I was raised. It's like
Mhm.
there's just stuff you have to do that you're not gonna like, but you still have to do it.
Right, right.
Like, and sure, you can make the argument, well, over time, if you make enough money, you can hire somebody to do your dishes for you.
Yeah,
Very true.
yeah,
Right. So yeah, like the further along you get in whatever it is that you're doing, the less of the stuff you don't like you're gonna do.
right.
But it's like everybody wants that from day one. It's like, well, I'm an intern and I hate half my job. You're, as long as you hate only 49% of it, you're probably doing okay if you're an intern. Like,
Right.
and then maybe as you get you get hired full time, maybe it's only gonna be 40%, and then maybe it's 35, and then no, as you get to whatever the next step is, it's maybe only 70, like you said. Like I think
Yeah.
it's a progression. Like
Mm.
early on, you're gonna do, like, and again, people don't want to use this language anymore. It's almost like, oh, well, don't talk about it that way. It's like the quote unquote grunt work. It's like, well, yeah, you have to build up. You have to learn how to do you have to learn how to do the things that you maybe don't want to do, but they sort of build up to the next step.
Yeah, well, it's like learning to walk before you run. I feel like that's such a cliched phrase to use, but it's like you have to take that first little step and the step after that, and
Yeah.
you can't if you started to try to run, you would just trip over yourself, and
Mhm.
I feel like it would be such a in the past when I've been like an intern, I've or in like a lower level position, I've been like, oh, why don't they let me do XYZ? I know I could do it so well, but it's like it's actually kind of compassionate that they don't let me do that because I would trip the hell all over myself. Like,
There's
oh,
a happy medium, right? I think
yeah,
this gets into like management. I feel like you have to, as a leader and a manager, you have to let your people fail,
yeah,
but you have to like sort of get them to the edge of comfort in there. Don't go like, well, here's your comfort zone. Go all the hell away over here and
yeah,
good luck. Like, here's the rope. Have fun.
yeah. Yeah, just swing over there. Well,
Um,
I just love I feel like we could keep talking about this forever, but one of the things I love about what you do at Proofpoint is you guys have this great marketing podcast called Master, and you have this framework. Remind me what it is. My
Mindset, skill sets, tool sets, results.
okay. Okay, so let's take that framework into this. Like you're developing your career, you don't believe the follow your passion myth anymore. What's the mindset that you need to shift away from this myth?
I think it's I don't know if it's a mindset, but I guess maybe you can call it a mindset. Like the concept I like to look at is, if anybody's read Scott Adams, the creator of Dilbert. Again, I didn't make this up. This is his thing, and maybe he got it from somebody else. I don't even know, but it's I forget what he calls it, but it's sort of like the consent, like the Venn diagram of skills in
Yeah.
terms of like don't you're two ways to kind of make it to the top, if you will. You could be the top half of 1% in one skill, or you can be the whatever, I can't remember the exact numbers, like the top 10% or the top 5% in like three related skills that are uncommon,
Yeah.
right? And then go that way. I think that's the mindset that I believe most people should strive for. Like
Yeah.
if you want to be the whatever, the best heart surgeon, that's hard. And then not that hard things are bad, but there's just based on the simple math, there's only so many best heart surgeons,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
But you can carve out, it's sort of like category creation for the marketers out there. Like you
Yeah.
can create your own category of best of X by combining unique skill sets and going, well, I'm the best that has this combination of skill sets.
Yeah.
And nobody else has that, right? Or
Mhm.
very few other people have that.
Yeah.
So I think having that mindset, it can help you, I think, become passionate about these things because it's much easier to be in the top 10% than it is in the top half of 1%.
That's true. That's
Like I
true.
said,
I like
I can make the argument I was probably in the top 10% of design students back then.
yeah.
I think that fueled my overarching creative passion, if you will.
Mhm.
Right. So right now I have a decent creative eye. I like solving problems and I'm good with data, among a few other things I've developed over time. But that's sort of my, amalgamation of stuff. And that's also kind of how our agency got built too. It's like are we the best paid search firm out there? No, we're not. I don't want to be. Like that's
Yeah.
boring. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway,
That's
so
great. Okay. So what
that's mindset.
yeah, I like it. Okay, so what skill sets can help people or how could people develop the right skill sets to help them shift away from this myth of follow your passion?
I think it's going off of this mindset is figuring out like what are the things you're already fairly good at that that can work well together, right? So I don't know, are you a decent coder, but you're probably not going to be the top engineer at whatever the next hot startup or Google or whatever, um, and you're pretty good with data, and you are I don't know happen to be good at copywriting or something. Okay, well, that you could carve out, you can build your own thing there. Like maybe you could build out an affiliate site. You can become a technical writer for XYZ. You can, start a media publication. You can work for one. You can, whatever. There's all sorts of directions you could take that skill set.
Yeah,
Um,
accessible UX, UI. Yeah,
yeah, whatever. Like, so I think it's figuring out what the things that you enjoy. I'm not going to call them passions per se,
yeah.
but things that you're pretty good at that you enjoy that you can combine together.
Mm. It's
Right?
like
Like,
the problems that you enjoy solving and then
mhm,
that you're not yeah, I like that. Okay,
yep.
so what tool sets do you need to dump this myth? And maybe this I don't know if you can answer this. Maybe it's more like specific to each person's skill set, but is there a general touch point that you could give?
Um, I haven't thought about it that way about this tool set. I don't. I don't know if it's a tool set, but again, for just thinking about how I got to where I am, I think it's exploring, just being open minded and exploring different things.
Yeah,
I think I think there's also this, I don't know if it's a traditional myth that kind of related, sort of like, oh, you have to choose what you're going to be when you grow up, right? And you're going to pick your major. And maybe
yeah,
I don't know if that's as big of a thing anymore as it was
yeah,
when I was in school, but I think it's like just being open minded to trying different things and having that be a good thing rather than a bad thing,
I like
right?
that.
And
that.
whether that's in school or whether that's out of school and trying some different internships and whatever. But I think that's not really, again, I don't think that's a tool set per se, but
Yeah,
just
yeah,
trying things out, figuring out like what am I actually good at? What
yeah.
do I actually enjoy doing? And how can I combine these things?
I like that. Yeah. So for following this framework all the way to the end, what are the results? I think your career is an obvious result, your agency, things like that. Is there any other touch point that you want to touch on what you think the results are of dumping this myth?
I think the results, in my opinion, the results are going to be you're actually going to enjoy what you do.
Mm,
And I think you're generally going to be more fulfilled. And I
yeah,
think the other thing is, this is maybe I'm going to go back to mindsets. There's one other, at least one other one, which is I think your passion, like literally what you are passionate about doesn't have to come from your job. Your job needs to enable what your passion is.
Mm,
So I really enjoy martial arts. Well, my job allows me to have enough flexibility to train
yeah.
as long as I don't get injured all the time, which is that's what I'm doing right now. But that's a whole different story. Um, right? But
Yeah.
am I going to compete? Am I going to make that my full-time job? No, God no. Right? I mean, too
Yeah.
late for that at this point. I'm 38. But like, or if I mean, I've talked to other people whose passion is like they really want to do something in the nonprofit space. Like, well, maybe I should start a nonprofit. I'm like, well, maybe, but I've actually seen a lot of people that thought that went to nonprofits and they absolutely hated it because guess what a nonprofit is? It becomes a business
Yeah.
and it becomes a thing. And it's like it changes from, well, I just want to volunteer my time and I'm making my money elsewhere to I'm gonna do this full time. Oh, shoot, I'm now having to make my paycheck from helping people. That's weird. And now I feel uncomfortable. Right.
Yeah.
Like I've seen that happen a lot. So versus, well, maybe I can become a volunteer director, whatever, like a head lead volunteer or something for an organization because my job supports that,
Yeah.
right? Or like, I mean, there's a bunch of ways to find that. Um, so again, I think your job doesn't have to be the thing you're passionate about, but it has to support and enable the passions that you have.
I like it. I like it. I love it. I feel like that is so relevant. Okay, so we've reached the end of our session, but I have a couple rapid fire questions for you. So coming right at you. Thank you for this conversation, by the way. That's been wonderful. So first rapid fire question: what is the most random job you've ever had?
Most random job. Um, let's see.
You can take this loosely. This could be
I mean,
loose.
my very first job, I was 14. I was working the counter at an Arby's. So there's that fast food.
Those curly fries, man.
That's you know what? I ate a lot of curly fries back then.
So what advice would you give someone coming fresh out of college? Just like soundbite of advice.
I think I've already said it. I think it's those two things. It's experience, like, be willing to experiment and not get stuck in the whole like, well, I went to school for this, so this is the thing.
Yeah.
Um, and then again, that other mindset I just mentioned, which is like your job doesn't have to be the place where you have your passion. It can be. Like I'm not gonna like if you have that, great, congratulations.
Right. Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but you don't have to get it there.
I love that. Okay, this is the last one. I'm super eager to hear
Mhm.
this. What is the song that you listen to pump yourself up or to motivate yourself?
I'm gonna give you a boring answer. I don't have any particular one. It's just depend. It depends on what I'm doing. Like
Okay.
I'm not like I don't know. You hear a lot of salespeople go like that. They pump themselves up before sales calls. I don't do that.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm
for
I'm thinking like the eye of the tiger since you're in the martial
uh,
arts.
so I mean, I have like it depends. Like I've got my like anytime I'm in the like if I'm in like garage gym or whatever, then I've got some sort of upbeat, high paced, loud, whatever
Okay.
thing. But there's not a particular song, so I'm gonna be boring
Okay.
in that case.
Okay. No, that's great. Well,
And
thank
I'm,
you.
I'm trying to think like when I was competing, what did I walk out to?
Yeah,
I
what
don't I
did you
don't even
walk
remember
to?
now, to be honest. Some
Okay.
sort of metal something back then. I don't remember what it was. I'll have to
You're
look
gonna
at the
have to get
videos.
back to me on that one. I'm curious now. I'm gonna need to find out.
I'm
Well,
pretty sure
thank
it was like Nine Inch Nails or something. I don't know.
well, thank you so much for joining me on the Newly podcast. I so appreciate the wisdom you shared. This conversation has been wonderful. And what can people do to get in contact with you or to learn more about you if they need to?
I'm on LinkedIn, and if anybody has some, I don't know, their job passion they're struggling with, I'm happy to chat.
Awesome.
Talk them off the ledge.
Well, thanks so much, Mike. I hope you have a great day.